Alright, so the high performer's journey can be lonely. I know it from my own experience, and that can also affect you that you don't have the time to take care of your fitness. But the funny thing is actually that if you simplify things, you can actually achieve a lot more and become top 1%. I've done it myself, going from out of shape founder, CEO, former finance guy to top 1% hybrid athlete, breaking the national muscle up record on my lunch break while building a virtual reality gaming startup with close to 30,000 customers. So how do we do this? Well, let's break it down. Right. So first of all, there are 3 areas we want to talk about. Number 1 is the most important, mindset. Then we talk about diet. Of course, diet is essential, but it's probably the most confusing area for most people. I know it because it's a very confusing space when you look at the fitness industry overall. And then finally, being an athlete. So as a founder, you want to treat yourself as an athlete, both a mental athlete as well as a physical athlete. All right. So number 1, mindset. So if you look at the challenges side, then you probably have a busy calendar, and this can be quite tricky because you don't know what to focus on. That's why we want to have, when we look at the right mental models, so to say, and mental models are how you actually view the world. So in different situations, you have to be able to look at things from different perspectives. For instance, if you're in a business situation, negotiation, or a product development. So if you talk with investors, you talk with developers, or you're then jumping in to a training situation. For instance, if you have a personal trainer, you have to know how to act in these different situations, right? And that's also why I made the 7 Days, 7 Elite Habits course that teaches you what it took me 16 years to learn, from being a average gym guy, going into university, earning my master's in finance, training 5 to even 6 times per week, and then realizing when I was actually working on publishing in an international financial journal that less is more, because I trained with UFC champion Georges St. Pierre during my finance studies in Montreal, Canada. This was as I went into the university there, I wanted to go there because I knew that one of the world's greatest MMA gyms are there, led by none other than top athlete and MMA coach Firas Zahabi, and UFC all-time great Georges St. Pierre was training there. I realized that these guys actually, while they are in the UFC going super hard, they're actually training very lightly with minimalistic tools. So that's why we want to have the right mental models, that when you jump on the 7 Days, 7 Elite Habits course, you will learn all these things that I learned over a decade, close to almost 2 decades now. Then finally, also the game theory, which is kind of this lonely road, lone wolf mentality that many founders have. They don't feel like there's anybody to talk to, like it's a Friday night in beautiful Finland here. I'm here outside where I grew up, next to the lake where I actually spent all of my summers, and I'm constantly thinking of how I'm going to solve different problems, for instance, with our latest product release versus roadmap versus budget, etc. So, but at the same time, there is kind of this calm mindset in the chaos, because by really embracing the 80-20 blueprint, the mindset that you can actually navigate yourself. So for instance, when we look at game theory and lone wolf mentality, then of course, you have to, life is a single player game, but at the same time, by writing down your thoughts and then having the right people in your life, you can actually achieve a lot. So that's why on the solution side for the mindset, you want to prioritize deep work 4 hours in the morning. So most people might feel, if you're a founder or high performer, you feel overwhelmed by all areas of your life. That's why you really want to prioritize early in the morning 4 hours of deep work. Like the team I've been leading for many years now, building a gaming startup as well as coaching people, I always say that you should clear your schedule as often as possible if you have the possibility to work 4 hours deep in the morning. So that means all notifications, no social media, and no meetings in the morning. This is where you should aim to have like peak performance on your mindset, your cognitive abilities. That means for me that I'm doing fasting, and 16/8 fasting gives me, because I don't get those blood sugar spikes, I'm very focused in the morning. I only drink black coffee and some water. Now for you, it's also depending on your situation, because there's some pros. For instance, if you eat protein in the morning, that can also work. But you need to figure out how you actually want to do it, which I also do in my 80/20 high performance 101 coaching. If you need help, then just comment below, or you can DM me on Instagram. So then if we look at the different mindset models you want to have, so while you have the deep work in the morning, you also have to have different mental models again. So one of the greatest investors of all time, Charlie Mungers, who I many times talked about on this channel, said that you have to have this sort of a multidisciplinary skill sets of being able to view problems from different areas of your life, experience, as well as science or business practices. But especially when we look at like sports performance, you have a limited time, then you really want to focus on the most timeless principles at work. That means that you really should avoid all like fad diets. You should also avoid all complex programs that are, for instance, focused, for instance, on athletes, like professional athletes, or like just an average gym goer, because you're not an average gym goer when you're a high performer. You actually want to really focus on the most scientific things that you can do in order to reach peak performance. Now, at the same time, you also want to embrace this sort of a warrior's mindset, because if you're only leaning towards, like scientific principles, you really need to understand that it's also about being the best. If you're a high performer, you should embrace The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which is basically that you need to have the right peers. For instance, if you're working in an industry, like I worked in finance, and I've also met a lot of people that for instance embrace, the weekends where you're partying or this stuff. Like, try to find peers who are actually, for instance, I know, like, I'm a millennial, but the younger generation is really prioritizing fitness instead of alcohol. But at the same time, you also must understand that you want to have the right alliance, and that way you can actually, through fitness, for instance, you can meet a lot of interesting people, and hopefully they're also working in your industry. And that way you can form this sort of alliance where you are, for instance, the high performance, and these guys might have bad habits. They're not treating themselves like athletes. So the mindset is the most important part. Then when we go into diet, you probably on a tight time budget. Also the lunch buffet might look quite chaotic, and you're like, okay, so how should I actually focus on the best, macronutrients? For instance, you want to aim for a very high protein diet. 16/8 fasting works the best for me. A lot of people say that fasting is the magic bullet. It's not. There are benefits to it, but all of the studies that have shown the most prominent results are in animal studies, and they are not replicated in human studies. So that's why 16/8 fasting, for instance, I use this Zero fasting app that you can, for instance, find on Android or on your iPhone. You can download it from the App Store, and it's free. That's the best part. And you can really use it to make sure that you're tracking your fasting. Next, so when you think about the diet, like I said, to eat clean can be very hard, but you really want to focus on a whole foods, high protein diet. So when you go to the lunch buffet, really look for a lot of vegetables, complex carbs. So for instance, instead of pasta, you want to go for sweet potatoes, as well as, chicken and salmon beef, etc. for protein. So a rule of thumb is to eat at least 100 grams of protein per day. Now, finally, on the diet side, the most important thing is still that you focus on CICO. So you focus on calories in, calories out. Meaning that if you want to build muscle, you should eat more than you burn. On the other hand, most high performers are slightly overweight, so you want to aim for a 10% body fat. And that's actually what we are focusing on. The 80-20 blueprint is to get you towards 10% body fat. While there's no clear 100% scientific evidence what body fat percentage you should aim for, 10% is where you, at least many who have coached as well as myself, perform the best. Because here you look great, you feel great, and you also think very clearly. So you want to find the most enjoyable way of getting to, for instance, to get to a minus 400 calorie deficit per day. Meaning that if you burn 2,400 calories per day, eat at 2,000 calories. This is the most important thing there. Finally, to get to the top 1%, physique, training. So like you see here, it's the smallest part of the diamond. That doesn't mean it's like something that you shouldn't focus on, because you still have to do the exercise. Like we know from studies that longevity comes from having a lot of muscle as well as having a great heart health. But the issue is, of course, tight time budget. You probably know, like if you work like 60 to 90 hour weeks, that it can be very hard to find the time. And again, the fitness industry really does a lot of lies here. Like you can't really trust, because this industry is influenced by so many fads, like so many diets or steroid use or whatever. Like you need to have resounding evidence. And personally, when I simplified by doing the basic stuff, training twice per week strength, like you can watch at the end of this video where it's about training without weights, because your body won't recognize the difference of you using weights versus your own body weight as resistance. As long as you train twice per week, push, pull, legs, 15 repetitions per set, and you want to do 3 sets per muscle group. Push, pull, legs. Reps close to failure. And if it becomes too easy at 15 reps, then you need to find a more challenging exercise. You can also comment below and I'll help you out on what you should actually aim towards. Like this has really been immense for me to really simplify this, to not just, get a good looking physique, but also a great posture, because when we sit all day in front of the computer, it's pretty bad. Then, like for cardio, only once per week, 60% of your max heart rate. So this is pretty light. Like you run for 1 hour, for instance, on Sundays, and when you run for 1 hour, you want to be able to, for instance, hopefully you can find a running partner. That's very good if you can do training challenges together. Then if you can still speak together, but you can really hear the breath, then you're about 60% of your max heart rate. Why should you aim here? Well, it builds up your aerobic base. It really improves your VO2 max, your heart health. And then finally, I like to do twice per week combat sports or skateboarding. And why should you do something like this? Well, it really is about also enjoying the process. So a lot of fitness coaches talk about, follow this structured program very well. Of course, you need good structure, but at the same time, if you're not enjoying exercise, like any exercise that you do, especially resistance training, will get you results. So that's it. Simplify these things and you will for sure reach top 1% physique. You can do all of this in just 3 months. And if you need more help, then make sure you watch this video or sign up on axelmethod.tech.